Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Eamon and I am a knitter based in Dallas, Texas. And this is my monthly podcast where I talk about everything I worked on in the last month. Except this one is actually going to cover the last 2 months because I may or may not have missed a podcast in the middle there. But we're here now. So this one is going to cover everything I worked on in March and April, not just April. So yeah, let's get started. Starting off with finished objects. The first finished object I don't have on hand because it was a gift. So I have already given it away, which is a good thing because I finished it in time and I was able to give it, but also kind of sad that I don't get to show it because I also don't have a picture of it, which is completely my fault. So I went to Portland in March with my sister and I really wanted to make a gift for a former coworker that I was visiting, and so I knit the Musselburgh hat. Most of you have probably heard of it, and it's I get the hype now. So it's a hat, but you start on one end, you cast on, increase, knit twice the length of a normal hat, and then decrease, and then you just put one end into the other. So it has that sort of like endless edge. So there's no like cast on edge, and it looks really professional. It looks really beautiful. I've been hearing about the Musselburgh for quite a while, and I finally knit it. I just used some sock yarn I had in stash. I'll put the yarn I used. I think it was, the shade was this like blue greeny shade. I mentioned in my last podcast, I think in February, that I was gonna knit it, so I did show the yarn as well. So I used that yarn and it turned out so well. I'm so impressed. I have so many more Musselburgh plans. I now get why everybody who knits one starts knitting like multiples. I want to knit one for myself. I want to knit a few. It's just such a good pattern, like so worth it to have the pattern because I feel like I'm gonna make it again and again. It's such a great baby gift as well, I think. So I want to knit a baby one as well. But anyways, I knit the Musselburgh. It turned out great. I actually finished it the night before I was going to give it to him. So I was literally in the hotel room at like really late into the night. I was like finished it off, and then the next morning I didn't have time to block it, so I steam blocked it the next morning. My sister helped me, and then I gave it to him, and it fit him perfectly and it looks beautiful. The only picture I have of it, unfortunately, is of him wearing it, and I don't want to share that without his permission, of course, so I don't have a picture. I'll confirm that. I'll go back into my phone. It was just so last minute, like finishing it and blocking it and giving it, that I just didn't have time in the middle to photograph it, but it happened. I finished it. I will definitely be making more Musselburghs, so you'll be seeing more in the future, but unfortunately don't have much to show for this one. But happy it would fit and happy it got gifted. So that was the first finished object in March, and the second finished object I finished in April, and that was a pair of socks, which were also a gift knit, but in this case I do have pictures. So I have a friend who was visiting in April, and she had asked me a while ago for socks, and she is so knit-worthy and so amazing, and she really genuinely wanted knit socks like so bad. Like sometimes people ask you and you're like, eh, you don't know if they actually want a knit item, but she really truly did, and I love her. So I knit her a pair of socks, and these were a bit freehand. I think a few podcasts ago I talked about how I was sort of struggling with my socks in that they knit up perfectly, and I have knit so many socks. I love knitting socks. They're a therapeutic knit for me, and a lot of the time most of the socks I've knit have been gifts, but I've noticed when I block them they just lose some of that snugness that I crave in socks. Like I really like my socks to be quite snug, and I want them to have negative ease. And I knit them with 2.25mm needles, so it is quite a small needle, so I don't want to go down to 2mm. And I usually do a medium for myself, and they just, after blocking, they just get quite loose. So this pair I gifted to her, I sort of had this idea of adding a ribbed arch. So I just did some ribbing in the middle of the sock where the arch is, and I felt like maybe I was hoping that would keep it sort of a little bit more snug even after blocking and after some wear. So I think they came out really well. I'll insert some pictures here. I also did a double cuff. So I have been wanting to play with double cuffs. I just don't love a cast on edge. And with my own socks, I tend to fold them down, I've noticed. So I sort of catered this sock to be what I would want my perfect sock to be. So it would have a double cuff, it wouldn't have a super long leg, so I wouldn't have to fold it over, because I like the leg to just be like a little bit, like just enough that it's not an ankle sock. Not an ankle sock, what are the shorty socks? Like, I don't generally wear shorty socks, so I want it to have just a little bit, but not so much that I'm folding it over. And then I added the double cuff, which is definitely a bit fussy because you do a provisional cast on and then knit and then fold them together, knit them together, and I knit them together in the rib in the same ribbing as the cuff. So it came out really clean, really nice. I will definitely be adding more double cuffs to my socks. I just think it looked so good. I feel like the cuff and the ribbed arch sort of retain more shape than a normal cuff, because I've noticed also with my cuffs they sort of lose shape. I'm putting so much thought into knit socks. It's like a whole thing. It's a whole thing. I think about them a lot and then I wear them and I have so many opinions. But anyways, so this pair of socks were sort of my improvements that I would want. So I'm definitely going to be knitting another pair for myself. In my head I called them the Snuggie socks. So yeah, it's just a freehand sock and I think they turned out well and I'm excited to make another pair. And I used this beautiful yarn that I had in my stash. And it's not Malabrigo, Madeline Tosh, I believe, and it's called Wolf. So it's just a really beautiful variegated colorway. So yeah, very happy with how those turned out, and I gifted those as well at the end of April. So that was my second finished object. And because I keep talking about how my socks sort of lose shape and everything, this is a pair of socks I knit in December, January, I think. I want to say they were either in the first ever podcast or the second podcast I have, and I think this is only the fourth. So in January time, I knit these socks and they were fitting me perfectly. And I knit with 64 stitches, and I did the toe up Fleegle sock pattern by Very Pink Knits. This was my first time knitting a Fleegle heel, and it came out really well and they fit me really well and I love them and everything was perfect. And then I blocked them and now they're quite loose, like you can tell they're a bit wide. So I still wear them quite a lot and I love them, however, just a bit loose. And also with the cuff, you can see the cuff also sort of lost its shape. Like it used to cinch and now it sort of doesn't. And this is 1x1 rib. I think 2x2 probably holds up better, but I don't know, I just thought I'd share. So this is definitely because of blocking, but my gauge was spot on, I believe. And this is with 2.25. So I think for vanilla socks from now on, I'm not going to knit a medium. I'm going to knit a small, which is usually 56 or 57 stitches. And then it'll just block out because you know what the thing is? It's because I use superwash yarn. Superwash yarn is the culprit here. It just grows more, a lot more, always than I anticipate. So I think from now on for vanilla socks, I'm just going to do smalls. And then with color work and cabled or lace socks, I'll probably still do mediums because those tend to constrict the fabric a bit more. But yes, that is my sock journey, and that is the second finished object. And then finally, my third finished object. This is the big one. This has been what I've been working on for the most part, for the majority of my time in March and April, and it is finally done. If you saw my last podcast, I was almost done with the body at that point, and a lot has happened since then, but drum roll please, because the Billie sweater is done. This is the Billie Pullover, actually not just the Billie sweater, I think it's called the Billie Pullover by Sari Nordunland. I think I pronounced her name wrong. I think it's Nordunland, perhaps, it is a cable sweater, and I knit this sweater. Actually, let me just show it first. So it's quite big. I don't know if you'll be able to see all of it, but I will definitely insert pictures of the finished object. I knit this sweater for my brother, and this was cast on after a sort of Knives Out, like the inspiration was the Knives Out sweater Chris Evans wears, and I know that came out a while ago, and for some reason about 8-9 months ago I really wanted to knit a men's cabled sweater. So I searched quite a bit, and there's quite a few men's cabled sweater patterns. There's a Handsome Crisp sweater on Ravelry. I'll link that below. It's a pretty close copy of the sweater that he wears in the film. There's also Savin, which apparently is Evans, spelled backward, I think, which is another sweater that I think is very beautiful and also takes inspiration from that sweater in Knives Out. I just wanted to knit something by Sari because I love her patterns, I love her designs, and I really liked the Billie pattern. So although I was inspired by the Knives Out movie, I just wanted to knit a cabled pullover for like a men's cabled pullover. So this is the one I chose, and it has been a long journey. I think I cast this on about 10 months ago, and that is a long time. I haven't been knitting on it for 10 months. I sort of took quite a lot of breaks. This is the second sweater I've knit. I didn't anticipate how much longer cabling takes, at least for me. And so I took a lot of breaks from it because I think with larger projects, for me at least, I tend to put them down and take a break and do something else. Like I don't continuously knit on one project if it's super large. Like I need breaks from it. So with this one, I took a lot of breaks, and I think it's because the cabling was so intense. By intense, I don't mean difficult. It's actually quite easy to memorize the pattern, and the pattern is written beautifully and very easy to follow. And I think after you memorize the pattern, which happened pretty easily, I think, it's quite mindless as well. But I still, just because it like sort of takes you out of the knitting a little bit to use a cable needle and sort of cable, even if you don't use a cable needle, which for some parts I didn't, it's still not exactly like straight garter or anything. It's not completely mindless. So I did take quite a lot of breaks from it. At one point, I think I put it down for 2 to 3 months. Then I finished the yoke. I also didn't anticipate how much more you have to knit for men. So because it's for my brother, I had to extend the yoke quite a bit. Yeah, it was just a lot. So after the yoke, I also took another break, then did like a big push to get the body done. And yeah, we are finally done. In the last podcast, I was almost done with the body. So another thing, because I'm knitting this for my brother and it needed to be longer, I also ran out of yarn, which I didn't think was a big deal. I'm using 220 Superwash Merino by Cascade Yarns, which I got from my local yarn store. So when I ran out, I was like, no biggie. I was about here with the first sleeve. I think I had about 5 inches left or so. I just went down to my local yarn store to get another skein. Lo and behold, however, Cascade Yarns have apparently changed mills. From what I understand, they've changed their mills from China to Turkey, I think. So the colorways were the same, but the color was drastically different. I wish I had taken a picture of the new color of the same colorway. This is colorway 76, which is called Flame Heather. It's like a burnt orange, like rust shade, and the new one with their changed mills I wouldn't even put it in the orange family. It's very brown with like rust undertones. So it's completely different. I didn't even think it was the same color, so I didn't even pick it up. I had to ask for help, and they're like, oh, this is the colorway. And I was like, no, it's not. So yeah, that was a bit of a conundrum. I started panicking because I was like, if I can't do the other, like I don't know, like how am I going to do the other sleeve? And if I finish off this sleeve here, I knew it wouldn't fit him and it would just look odd, especially after all that work. I didn't want to give him a sweater that didn't fit him properly. So yeah, so I cold called a bunch of yarn stores. I went on Ravelry, looked up the yarn, cold called a bunch of yarn stores and asked them where their yarn, their Cascade 220 Superwash yarn was from. And most of them had the new yarn, which makes sense. If you're a yarn store, you're going to be moving inventory a lot. And so nobody had the yarn that I was looking for. Eventually, I went on Ravelry and I reached out to 2 ladies who had some in their stash, and one responded and was willing to sell it to me. So I got the additional skein, finished the first sleeve. So in between there was like a month of no knitting as well. And then started the other sleeve and finished that as well. So that is the story of the sweater. So yes, I am very happy with this. I am so thrilled it's done. I can't even, like, I'm just so happy it's done. By the end, I was very ready for it to be done. I can appreciate cables a lot more now. I think they're so beautiful. I genuinely want a cabled sweater for myself, but not this year. I just need a break from cabling. So yeah, I totally recommend this pattern. I think she wrote it so beautifully. It's easy to follow. But I need a break from cables. I will not be cabling for a minute, probably. Watch me say that and then cast something on though. So I don't know, I definitely need a break. Also, the yarn is 220 Superwash Merino. She recommends 220 Merino, not the Superwash. I got the Superwash without really thinking about it. And in the end, it worked out for me because the sweater was quite snug on my brother and I really needed it to sort of grow, and the superwash did that in the blocking, so that was a secret blessing. I think if I could go back, I would definitely knit one size up, just because of the cables. It constricts the fabric quite a lot, so it fits him perfectly well, but it fits him with zero ease, so there's no additional ease. It just fits him perfectly. I think if I want an oversized sweater, I'm going to keep that in mind for cables moving forward. Like, you definitely want to size up. So if I could go back, I probably would size up. And I've noticed other people who've made the Billie have said the same, especially with this honeycomb pattern. It just tends to pull in a little bit, so it's a bit more snug than expected. So that is one note for myself. I also think if I cast on another all over cable sweater, I'm gonna go at it with a different mentality. I sort of went with this, I cast this on thinking, oh, I'll have it done in 2 to 3 months. But I think if I knit another cable sweater, I'm gonna think of it as a long-term project, cast it on alongside some others, like more mindless projects, and just keep it going in the background. Because I expected it to be done sooner because I didn't know how long cables take, I think I frustrated myself. So by the end I was like, this should have been done a while ago, which is not something you want to think about knitting anyways. It's about the process. We all know that. However, when a project kind of drags on longer than expected, it can get a little frustrating, and I was definitely frustrated towards the end, more with myself, that I hadn't like taken it into account that it's a longer project and it's not that big of a deal, but also I really wanted it to be done so you could wear it for the winter, which didn't happen. I finished this end of April, so just in time for summer, so he's gonna have to wait for next winter for sure. But anyways, I think next time I'm just gonna, like, now I know this, something like this is gonna take longer, and that's to be expected, and that's okay. So I think if I just set my expectations next time, it's not gonna be a big deal. But I definitely wasn't letting myself cast on another sweater while this was in progress, which I think was part of the frustration. I should have just cast something on, but I knew I wouldn't really go back to this as much if a new project caught my attention, and I sort of got caught up in that, which is true, but also that's not a big deal. I mean, I don't mind having multiple projects on the go. So anyways, a few things I've learned, and then I think aside from that, I would probably, like, for my next cabled sweater, I would be a bit more intentional with the yarn choice. With this one, I sort of just went into the store. They had Cascade, which is what the pattern suggests, and I sort of just got it, and it worked out really well. However, I think next time I would want something with a little bit more clarity for cables. This one has a bit of a fuzz on it, which is not a bad thing. I don't know if you can see, but it's not like a mohair halo, it's just a bit of fuzz. I think it's probably gonna pill, which again, not a big deal, but I think if I'm gonna be cabling this much, I want the yarn to have enough clarity that the cables show off a little more. So while I'm really happy with this yarn, Cascade yarns, like the 220 Superwash Merino and the 220 Merino, are really good yarns. And I really enjoyed knitting with it. It felt really good. But I think next time, I probably wouldn't get superwash. I would size up, and I might get something with a little bit more clarity. So yes, that is what I have learned. Super happy with how it turned out, but also so happy to have it done. I want to give it a little speech of, I'm so happy, and also, can you leave now? So he is going to my brother's closet. So yes, super happy, and also so excited to now have the space mentally and in my knitting to cast on a ton of new things. So yes, with that, let us move along to works in progress. So the day I finished the Billie, the next day I cast on a sweater. So this is going to be the sweater number 14 V-neck by My Favorite Things Knitwear. So far, I just have the back section done, and I haven't, so I'm almost done with that, and then I'm going to pick up for the shoulders. This is a beautiful, beautiful color and a beautiful yarn that I got in Portland. So if you saw the haul, you'll have seen this. This is Knitting for Olive Merino and Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in the color Unicorn. As soon as I saw this, I was quite taken by it, and I got quite a lot. So when I came home, I was debating what to cast on, and I decided on the sweater number 14 V-neck. I wanted something slouchy and casual for at-home wear. So this is what I decided on. However, it does use 2 strands of the Knitting for Olive Soft Silk with 1 strand of merino, and I just had enough mohair for 1 strand with 1 strand of merino, because I got enough quantity for a sweater for myself, but I didn't anticipate doubling up on the mohair. So I did place an order to get additional mohair from the same store, which is Unraveled in Portland, I believe. So yes, this is coming along so fast, especially after the Billie. I am flying on this. The needles are really big. This is 6mm. It feels huge. So this is going really fast, and I'm very happy with it. So yes, that is work in progress number 1, and I will be picking up the stitches for the shoulders. I'm keeping it in this really cute bag I also got from Unraveled. So yes, that is project number 1. Project number 2 is a baby blanket. This is for somebody very close to me who is going to be having a baby, and I'm keeping this in this gorgeous little yarn bowl that I think I bring out and show every single time I'm using it, because I think it's so beautiful. It was a gift, so I don't know where it's from, but I just love it so much. But this yarn I've had in my stash. I just picked it up because with baby, I just really liked it, and with baby knits, sometimes it's good to have baby yarn on hand. This is the Concept by, no, not Concept. This is the Katia, one sec. This is the Fair Cotton Merino by Katia. And it's a self-striping yarn. It's not striping, but it has some stripes throughout it. And I really like this. So I have knit with cotton before, and it ended up being a unfinished object. I was knitting a ruffle dress, and I was using Sandnes cotton yarn. And I hadn't knit with cotton before, and it was just so abrasive and sort of coarse to knit with. It doesn't feel as soft or springy as wool because it's plant fiber, and I just was not feeling it, and I ended up I was just not into it. So I just threw it in the back of my closet. It is still unfinished. This cotton yarn I'm slightly happier with. I don't know if it's because now I knew what to expect, but it's coming out really soft. I feel like it's coming out softer than the Sandnes Garn one, honestly. I've got this much so far. It's coming out quite soft and springy. It feels good, actually. And I'm using wooden needles this time because I knew I didn't like the metal needles with the cotton. It's still a little bit more coarse than wool, of course, and it doesn't feel as great always, but it's making a really nice cloth, and it does feel softer than the Sandnes Garn one. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm making a baby blanket. I don't want to knit I wanted a garter stitch blanket, but I don't want to knit straight back and forth because I get really bored, and I tend to leave those projects, especially with 200 stitches or something of that sort, pushing them back and forth. I just was not in the mood. So I'm knitting a baby blanket on the bias. So I'm starting with one corner, and then I'll link the pattern I'm following. It's a very easy to follow baby blanket recipe. I'm saying recipe because it's just 2 steps. You knit one, knit front and back. Actually, you slip one, knit front back, knit throughout, and then do the same on the other side. And it's just that easy. So this way I can knit to halfway for what I want the blanket to be, and then start decreasing. And I think because it's on the bias and I'm increasing every row, it keeps me slightly more engaged than straight stockinette, and it's easier with the stitches. You don't have to shuffle 200, 250 stitches. And it's slightly more addictive as well. It's quite addictive actually, because you're watching it grow so fast. It's really fun to keep going. So I'm very happy with this, and it is color changing yarn. It has pinks and greens, and I think a little bit of blue in it as well. What I didn't anticipate though was, because it's a reversible blanket, of course, it's just garter stitch. This is what a normal, when you change colors, this is what a normal right side looks like. But with the reversible, you can see the wrong side as well, and it has that one, it has that the row below that's been knit, it has that color, so it's not a smooth transition. But I'm just going with it. It's a baby blanket. I love the feel of how this is turning out, and I sort of went to all my knitting friends at my knit night, and I was asking their opinion, and they were like, just go with it. So I'm gonna go with it, even though as I change colors, it's gonna have a little bit of that discrepancy. I'm gonna go with it, and we shall see how it turns out. So yes, very happy with that as well. And that's it for my works in progress. I have the bias shawl that I've mentioned in previous podcasts, but it's sort of in hibernation. It's currently on the back burner. I'm not in the mood to knit on it, so I'm not even gonna bring it out. I have not made any progress on it. I'm also having so much fun knitting the sweater number 14 that I haven't cast anything else on. I do have some plans though that I want to share. I guess this is kind of going into acquisitions, but I purchased the Charming Colorwork Socks book by Charlotte Stone. This is a beautiful book that I have had my eye on for quite a while. Charlotte Stone is on Instagram as Stone Knits, and she designs colorwork socks, and her socks are so cute and fun, and I have been wanting to get the book. So I finally got it because I had a gift card for a bookstore. I really want to make these I Heart socks. So I haven't made colorwork socks before. I've always been a bit wary of the fact that I'm gonna have floats, and I don't know, floats on your feet, but I'm just gonna go for it, and I'm actually very excited. So I have some stash yarn that I want to use. I have this very light pink, which I'm going to use as the background, and then for the hearts, I have this other yarn. For the hearts, I have this Madeline Tosh in this very beautiful bright pink. So I'm very excited to pair these together. I think it's gonna be so beautiful. So I'm gonna wind this up and skein it up, wind it up, cake up the yarn, and I'm going to cast those on soon. I don't know if I was debating making it double cuff, but I don't know if I want to. We shall see. So those are probably my next cast on, and I believe this is Madeline Tosh. I believe this is Madeline Tosh as well. Yes, it is. I can tell from the label. So yes, that is my next cast on, and that is acquisition number 1 as well. I'm actually so excited to knit on these. I have the 52 Weeks of Socks, the original one as well, and I want to knit quite a few of those as well. I haven't gotten around to it. I got the book a few months ago. I know the second volume is coming out, but I'm not going to get that until I have sufficiently used the books I have, because I have so many beautiful sock patterns I haven't knit yet. So yeah, very excited for this. And then I have some yarn acquisitions as well. I was scrolling on Instagram one night, as you do, and I saw this beautiful yarn by a company called Emily Gillies. The Instagram post was talking about their new sock base, which is a non-superwash, non-nylon sock base. So this is 80% BFL and then 20% mohair. And I know mohair is sort of considered nature's nylon. It's a natural way to add strength to yarns. So this is 20% mohair, and I've been wanting to try non-merino socks. So most of my sock yarn and most of my stash sock yarn is merino. Actually, I think all of it is. But lately I've really been wanting to try different sock bases, and the reason is that merino is really soft, and I love that for garments because it's super drapey and, you know, soft and snuggly and all. That's great. But with socks, I actually prefer a little bit more rustic yarn because I like the strength it gives them, and also I don't really want like super soft socks because I find that they're a little bit slipperier, if that makes sense. So I saw the post and I was very tempted. And I also have not used mohair in sock yarn, and I've also been wanting to try it. I wasn't sure how I would feel about it because mohair tends to give a halo, and I didn't know if that would, I don't know, it feels like it's gonna grab all the dust on the floor, but this is only 20% mohair, so it doesn't actually have much of a halo. It feels rustic, but it's not scratchy at all. It's still pretty soft, and I'm so excited to knit this up. Yes, so this is my first non-superwash sock yarn that I've got, and I think this company is based in Canada. I will link them below. They were doing a sort of soft release, and then the post said they were going to have a larger release of colors. I think they had 4 colors in this release, and this one is the one I wanted, and when I went it was like one of the only ones left, so I was super thrilled. This one is called Mom Jeans, which made me smile. It's like blue with purples in it. So yes, I really want to cast this on as well. I've already chosen a pattern. It's something from the 52 Weeks of Socks book. I don't recall the name quite off the top of my head, but I'll find it and link it. So very excited to knit that up. I know I just said I want to try other bases, but I also got more sock yarn, like merino sock yarn. This is Olivia and Oliver Fibers. She is a dyer based out of the Netherlands. I watch Chelsea from the True Line Knitting podcast, and I really enjoy her podcast, and she really likes the Olivia and Oliver fiber yarn. So when they had their I think it was like, was it their spring release, I immediately wanted to check it out. So I got these 2 beautiful colors. This one is they're both classic sock, which is 75% merino, 25 nylon, and it's a 2-ply high twist. This is Pixie number 3, the colorway. I think she does these Pixie colorways that are sort of leftover dyes, so they're one-time colorways. And I just love the green. And then this one is her cotton colorway, which is a really beautiful color because I like that it doesn't have much yellow in it, and I wanted a neutral without a yellow undertone. And then the last acquisition I have is another book. This is Patty Leon's Knitting Bag of Tricks. It came out a while ago and everybody was talking about it. It's not a pattern book, it's just what it says. It's a bag of tricks. It's just tips and tricks to improve your knitting, and I was really tempted, so I went and grabbed this when I was in my local yarn store as well. But yeah, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next podcast. Bye!